South Korea. You know, Buffett is not exactly what you might expect. This jet setter shows up on the tarmac in a simple sweatsuit, but don't let his casual look fool you. Buffett is all business. Charming, yes, but all business. And right now he has a plan for conquering Asia. On this trip, he heads from Omaha to China to South Korea and back, all in under 56 hours, and we are with him every step of the way. At 77 years old, Warren Buffett is working as hard as ever, circling the globe to see firsthand the progress his companies have made and to rally his troops. The chairman and CEO of Berkshire Hathaway since 1964, Buffett sits over an enviable cornucopia of household names including Dairy Queen, Geico, NetJets, See's Candies, and Fruit of the Loom. He also owns major stakes in American icons, including Coca-Cola and the Washington Post. It all began over 65 years ago. The legendary investor buys his first stock, City Services Preferred, at age 11. He liquidates his entire portfolio of 3 shares just 3 years later.
And I bought it at 38 and sold it at 40, and it went to 200.
And that made you think I should...
Maybe patience was a better thing.
As Buffett watches the gains he missed out on, he learns that investing is much like his favorite sport, baseball.
Ted Williams, in The Science of Hitting, talks about waiting for the right pitch, and that's what investing is. I mean, there are a lot of parallels. If you swing at bad pitches and feel you have to swing at every pitch, you're going to have a terrible batting average. But if you wait for the right pitch, in baseball, once you get 2 strikes on you, you have to swing at a bad pitch if it's in the strike zone. In investing, you just wait till you get the right pitch.
A skill that this investor, who claims he was destined for a career in asset allocation, has certainly mastered.
I tap dance to the office every morning, and the reason I'm tap dancing is because something may happen like that. I may get a phone call, there may be a letter there, and when it does, it's a lot of fun.
In 1956, at just 25 years old, Buffett starts a limited partnership. The seed money, $100 of his own cash, and investments from family and friends totaling just over $100,000. In less than a decade, Buffett grows that sum to a whopping $26 million, investing in farm equipment manufacturers and textile companies, including one called Berkshire Hathaway. By 1969, Buffett amasses a controlling stake in Berkshire. In the 4 decades since, he has built it into one of the largest holding companies in the world. The world's 3rd richest man, with a net worth of over $52 billion, is a person of simple pleasures. He has no entourage, no cell phone or BlackBerry. In fact, he rarely emails anyone, and he lives in the same home he bought almost 50 years ago in Omaha, Nebraska.
Hi. Hi.
Buffett makes his deals much the same way he manages his life. He buys what he understands.
We're looking for companies with durable competitive advantage, run by able and honest people, and we're looking for businesses that we can acquire at a price that makes sense for Berkshire Hathaway.
That's why Berkshire Hathaway has always owned only American companies, those Buffett could get both his hands and his head around.
Ain't she kinda sweet?
That is, until May of 2006. That's when Buffett surprises shareholders at his annual meeting with news that he is shifting gears, plunking down $4 billion to buy a controlling stake in Iskar, a metalworking company based in Israel. It's a total change in direction for Buffett, and one that starts with a simple letter.
I got a letter in October of 2005 from a man I didn't know about a company I had never heard of, and it was a 1.25 pages long, and it just jumped off the page that these were the kind of people I'd want to be associated with in the kind of company. So he said he would come over if I was interested, 1.25 pages. I emailed him, and he and 2 of the associates were over a little while later, and we just hit it off like that, and I gave him a check for $4 billion without ever seeing the plant.
For 80%?
80%, right.
How do you write a 1.25 page letter that jumps off the page and grabs your attention?
That doesn't happen very often, but I could tell the kind of person that was on the other end, and I could tell from a few figures and a little description of the business that it was exactly our kind of business. And it's a gem. I mean, I've never bought a manufacturing operation that looks as good as this one.
But his first look at Iskar's operation doesn't come until after he closes on the deal. Berkshire actually bought Iskar, which was founded by Stefan Wertheimer, sight unseen. But since then, the billionaire next door has gained plenty of frequent flyer miles touring his new operations. Buffett visits ISCAR's headquarters in Tefan, Israel, which is home to about a third of ISCAR's more than 6,000 employees, shortly after buying the cutting tool business. He and longtime friend, Berkshire's vice chairman Charlie Munger, toured the plant in September of 2006. CNBC's Carl Quintanilla is there.
I knew where it was when we bought it. What you have here is a remarkable group of people doing remarkable things in their field, achieving terrific results all over the world, but based right here, at 8 miles from the Lebanese border.
Does that mean the risk premium in Israel is no greater than it is in the U.S.?
I would say that there's, in terms of any very short period of time, you could have an event break out. But over the long term, the United States and Israel have exactly the same risk. I mean, we live in a dangerous world. It's our job to make it less dangerous.
The trip leaves a lasting impression on Buffett.
We'll never find another one like ISCAR, but we can just find something that's 80% of ISCAR. We'll be very happy.
Now, on this trip, he'll get a chance to see ISCAR's Asian operations up close. And Asia is key to the company's growth.
We're opening a plant in Dalian for ISCAR, and it's an important business operation for us. So,
why?
Well, ISCAR is in 61 countries around the world, based in Israel. But China will probably be the largest market eventually for ISCAR. We make all kinds of little carbide cutting tools, and they find their way throughout industry. So as Chinese industries boom, steel industry, the car industry, whatever, they use these little tools. And the interesting thing about it is carbide comes from tungsten. Tungsten, by and large, is mined in China. But here was a company in Israel, halfway across the world, and they figured out the best way to use this tungsten in carbide tools. And although they've been selling in China before, this was the first time they've had a plant back there. So the technology, the raw material originally went from China to Israel, and now the technology is going from Israel to China.
In China, you expect will be the biggest market for ISCAR by what year? By 10 years from now?
I would be surprised if within less than 10 years, China could be the largest market.
And already, ISCAR's newest factory is setting records. Fresh off a tour of the facility, Buffett says things here in China seem to happen on double time.
The factory went up in 6 months. It's 250,000 square feet or so, and in 6 months it was done. And now they're good, but they couldn't have done it anyplace else in the world, I don't think, like they did it here in China.
Why can you do it in China?
You'd have to ask the people at ISCAR, but there were no roadblocks of any kind whatsoever. And people worked hard. They got it done fast. And the customers want the product, and we're going to be supplying it to them.
What kind of potential does this place have?
Well, this place has, just that plant right now in its present size will have several $100 million of potential. But we've got room to expand. Our customers will be expanding. I think you will be amazed at what happens.
Right now, this is the first factory for ISCAR in China.
In China.
In China. How big is this market going to be down the road?
It will be huge, Becky. I don't know how big it will be, but you have all of these companies that use our type of product, cutting tools, and we'd be crazy not to be here.
Even though Buffett's first international investment wasn't until 2006, he says he's been thinking globally his entire life, learning the lessons of globalization early on, starting with his investment company's namesake, the Berkshire Hathaway textile mills.
In the early, a century plus ago, if you lived in New England, you measured your wealth by looms and bobbins, just like people in the Midwest measured their wealth by acres of land. And it turned to dust, basically.
Is it, you think it's continuing to do that in other industries today? Or?
The world's always evolving, I mean, the job of somebody that allocates capital is to look out and see, not so much, in my case at least, where the world is going, but to make very sure that you know what the world's leaving. We like what we call durable competitive advantage. That company did not have. It had great workers. It had perfectly sound equipment. It was making something essential, men's linings and cloth for handkerchiefs and that sort of thing. But it did not have any durable competitive advantage, and eventually it disappeared.
What industries today do you think are disappearing in that way? Like,
well, you have to think about any industry that has a high labor cost, because we are at a competitive disadvantage in the United States with industries with high labor costs. So if now there are plenty of exceptions. I mean, you're not going to print the Wall Street Journal from China or India or something of the sort. But if you've got a business with a high labor content that's turning out kind of a basic product, you have to think twice about what's going to happen to it. I was wrong in shoes. I went into the domestic shoe business. I was dead wrong because it has moved. I've been in the textile business. We're buying our furniture over there. Now we retail it, we don't manufacture, but a domestic manufacturer has a terrible time now compared to 10 years ago. There's a lot of labor there, and they're good.
in China now, they're losing some of their factories. They're going offshore to Vietnam because it's cheaper labor there.
That's capitalism.
So it's constant.
Even in a communist country, that's capitalism. I mean, the world will seek low-cost production as long as the quality is thought to be fine. And we want to be very careful if we're looking at a business, if it's got a 40% labor content, why is it here and what will keep it here? Because it won't be because we know something that they don't know. I mean, the internet and all kinds of things. The world has gone flat in that respect. So if you're looking for durable competitive advantage, I mean, you're always looking for the chinks in the armor. There's something that can cause a business that's good today not be good 10 or 20 years ago from now. And that's a prime example. That was a wonderful business. That business, back right after World War II, was making as much money as almost any pharmaceutical company you can name or anything. I mean, it was big, but no more.
Coming up, whose idea is this anyway? The man who convinced Warren Buffett to leave Omaha on a whirlwind tour of the Far East, and why the world's greatest investor is certain his secrets to success won't get lost in translation. And later, that's right, throws right, makes a fortune. This fan of Warren Buffett wears a different kind of pinstripes from your average investor, and we've got him. It's an event worthy of fireworks and elaborate celebrations. Yes, there's a new factory opening here in Dalian, China, less than 300 miles east of Beijing. But the real cause for celebration, a guest of honor. The Oracle of Omaha, the world's third richest man who rarely leaves the United States, has come to town. He's making only his second trip to China ever. It's his first in more than a decade. And it's all because of this man, Eitan Wertheimer, the chairman of Iskar. That's the Israeli metalworking company that built this factory. He managed to convince Buffett to buy his company.
About 2 years ago, Eitan sent me a letter. It was on October 15th, 2005. And he talked about the situation with his business and was looking for a partner. And I was 10,000 miles away, and the letter was just a bit more than one page. But I could tell that this was something that was very, very interesting. It was a marvelous company, and it was run by marvelous people.
The father and son team of Stefan and Eitan Wertheimer wanted to prepare their company for life long after their own leadership ended. They debated taking the company public, leverage buyouts, mergers, but no solution seemed right for their employees and their customers until they found Warren Buffett.
And we were not in a hurry. It took us 3 years to find that actually there's one different model than the rest of the world, and this is Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway are very well known in the States. They're less known around Europe, around other parts of the world. And for us, once we understood that that's the right solution, or it looks like the right solution, I wrote him a letter. I wrote him a letter saying, what's the story and what we're looking for, and if he'd be interested to have coffee together. And I got the answer a couple of hours after the letter reached him, telling that sounds like an interesting, very fascinating company, and if by any chance we could come over to Omaha and have coffee. And I said, of course. We happen to be, by the way, we love to come.
So you were just in town, you were just in the neighborhood and you stopped by?
We took our luggage and went to the airport. We were so happy to go and talk to Warren. We didn't know what to expect. We were expecting a chain of secretaries in big buildings, but when we found a very modest man, very lovely, and it clicked from the first minute.
Omaha's a long way from Wertheimer's home in Israel, but if you want to borrow Buffett's ear, the surest and sometimes only way to do that is through Nebraska. In fact, Piccolo's right here in South Omaha is Buffett's favorite place to bring out-of-towners for dinner.
I love the food. The two sisters are just terrific that run it. But it just couldn't be a better place. So I'd take, you know, if A-Rod's in town or Jeff Immelt's coming into town tomorrow, we'll have dinner there, whomever. And they always like it. We always finish with a root beer float.
Like many of Buffett's favorite things, Piccolo's is family-owned and operated. Prime rib is their specialty. It's available every night for $14.50. But co-owner Donna Sheehan says it's not always what the Oracle eats. When he comes in, what's he generally order? Because everybody hears about how he likes French fries, he likes hamburgers.
He will have either veal parm or chicken parm. Once in a while, he will have prime rib. And he has muscatcholi and hash browns. He loves hash browns here.
Lots of vegetables, too?
Never orders any vegetables.
Not a big one, but he does like the desserts, right?
Yes, he loves root beer floats.
That's his thing
That's
every
his
time?
Thing, every time, a big root beer float.
A dessert that all of his famous friends, from Bill Gates to Jeff Immelt to Alex Rodriguez, have come to enjoy. Not to mention Wertheimer and his crew, too.
What did you think of Omaha?
Looks like a big village. I didn't know how to read it. I'm not sure I yet understand Omaha, but it doesn't matter from where you come. I also come from a small village.
Some other utilities on your radar screen right now.
The deal to buy Wertheimer's company was wrapped up in a matter of days.
Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway making a big acquisition.
Buffett announcing the purchase on the eve of Berkshire's annual meeting in May of 2006.
I love this company that we announced the purchase of yesterday. It's a significant business. It's a big business.
Then you were able to, just a few months later, convince Warren to come to Israel, and that is not an easy thing to do, to get Warren Buffett to leave the country.
Warren told me, I wrote to him earlier, why don't you come over? He said, listen, I haven't been to this country or that country or the ABCD, so don't expect me to go around so quickly. And then he told me also that he loves to sleep in his bed in Omaha. That's his most desired place for spending his time. I told Warren, listen, any lady going to the grocery store, every time she buys a tomato, she normally will touch the tomato to check the quality. Don't you want to come check? It's a big tomato over there. And he said, no, I'm doing the things my way and my system. So I told him, listen, promise me only one thing. If we finish the deal, will you come to Israel? He said, yes, I'm promising you. The second we finished the deal, he said, when do you want me to come? I said, September. So that's what happened.
So what's it like to travel with Buffett, the man without an entourage?
First of all, every time we travel with Warren, the kitchen gets very hot. A lot of people are curious about it. You've seen in Korea how we hardly could get him into the car and out of the car and a lot of other elements. A lot of people want to learn. A lot of people want to have a little signature on a book or to have a photograph for lifelong later to put on a fridge or some place in the room. You see that people sit and understand that here is somebody with a great mind and a perfect balance between the heart, the pocket and the mind. That hardly you see it anywhere else, if at all. And it's maybe the most rarest thing, and it's a blessing from God that they have a chance to listen and to see him alive. And I feel the same every time I meet him.
That admiration is mutual.
They've done so much for me that I'm going to say yes to anything they ask me. The Iscar people have been absolutely sensational. They've fulfilled every expectation I had when we bought the company, and then some, in both human ways and in financial ways. So anything I can do to help, and I can't do much. I don't know how to bend metal or do anything of the sort, but anything I can do for them, I'm glad to do. They're wonderful people.
Now, you mentioned this was a 2-day world tour. Why are your trips so short?
Well, there's not much I can do after. I can cut a ribbon. You know, I'm pretty good at that now. I've had a lot of practice, and I can smile, and but in terms of telling them how to lay out a factory, or telling them in terms of how to make sales calls, or develop new ideas from R&D, I'm pretty useless. So I do what I can do and what's needed, and then I get back home.
You said you had real high expectations, especially about the South Korean plant before we got there. Meet your expectations, exceed? What'd you think?
Well, what I saw in South Korea, and the new plant is just developing in China, and what I'd earlier seen in Israel, I have never seen, in 77 years of life, I have never seen a better factory operation than the Iscart people have put together in each of those places. They know as much about manufacturing as anybody I've ever seen.
Up next, Billionaire on board. We'll take you along for the ride with unprecedented access. And you never know who else might be on the plane. Also, is China really ready for a little green lizard and a family of cavemen? Why Warren Buffett hopes these familiar faces will mean billions in new business. And the surprising VIP who's got more than 275 million reasons for wanting to hang out with the Oracle of Omaha. As his plane sets off for Asia, Warren Buffett recalls his last visit to China 12 years ago.
The first time we had a terrific time. We went all over China. We spent 17 days there. There were 7 couples, and we went by plane, by train, by camel, by you name it, all over China. And it was well planned. I didn't have anything to do with it. And we went out all the way west. We came back on Mao's train, actually, and it was just great people and a great time.
This trip, though, is strictly business. On the ground in Asia for less than 20 hours, Buffett brings no assistant and no security along.
Okay, Becky, go to it.
But that doesn't mean his plane is empty. So you bring an entourage when you come along because you've got a lot of different companies that are doing
they can do a lot of business there. We'll make the trip pay.
Buffett's traveling because of Iscart, the only company Berkshire owns outside of the United States. But it's just one of over 70 companies in his portfolio. Buffett hopes that more of his managers will turn to Asia's high-growth markets in the coming years.
Great. It's a bargain.
Irv Blumkin, CEO of the Nebraska Furniture Mart, joins the boss on this trip to China.
Irv and I have been partners now for 24 years. In 1983, I bought the company on my birthday in 1983, and you can't imagine a better association. We take vacations together virtually every year, and we have the time of our lives.
The Nebraska Furniture Mart, 1983. In a deal sealed over a handshake with Irv's grandmother, Rose Blumkin, Buffett pays $60 million for the Omaha-based furnishing superstore. Today, that's equivalent to how much merchandise the mart sells in a good month. And you've been going to China for how long?
About 10 years.
About 10 years for the business.
That's right.
And how much of your stuff comes from China right now?
Probably 75–80% comes from China today.
Where did it used to be? 10 years ago, where was most of the furniture coming from? United States.
North Carolina, mostly North Carolina.
And what's happened to the cost of furniture over the course of that time as you move from sourcing overseas?
It's gone down dramatically, and tremendous deflation in the category.
Yeah. And what
great values to the customer, though.
Yeah. What kind of things are we looking for this trip out?
This trip mostly case goods and some upholstery, sofas, love seats, along with bedroom sets, dining room sets, occasional tables. After
landing in Dalian, Blumkin leaves Buffett and spends 10 days traveling all over China and Vietnam. It's a tour he's quite familiar with, flying halfway around the world once a year to find the best bargains for Furniture Mart customers. Your family's been doing this for a long time. You've been doing this for a long time. Did the move to China for sourcing catch you by surprise?
For sure, the drastic change and the fast pace of change didn't catch us by surprise, but it moved a lot faster than we thought it would. And it was a huge disruption in the furniture industry and in the channel distribution. Was it surprising? The fast pace of change was what was so surprising.
What were you thinking, maybe 2-3 decades down the road?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe 20 years, and it may be parts or it may be small things, but doing business in a country so far away and with lead time and customers wanting immediate gratification, I didn't see it quite as quick as it was really happening.
What's it mean for prices, though? I mean, if you take a look at some of the prices that are here.
Well, you take a table like this. This table is a $429 table at the Furniture Mart price. Mm-hmm. It's lift top, it's wood, it's got all baskets, and in the United States, this would probably be 50% higher if it was produced in the United States.
So it's $429 if this was made in the United States. I'm trying to do a little quick math, but it'd be something closer to $650?
Minimum.
Minimum.
Yes.
While prices at the Furniture Mart are benefiting from low-cost manufacturing, Blumpkin says it's a trend that may not last forever.
We're starting to feel some pressures. When I was over in China, you could see there was starting to be some labor shortages. The government wasn't subsidizing like they were before. They basically taken away parts of the rebates they used to give these manufacturers. The energy prices are going up. So you can start to see the pressure that's happening in China. That's why a lot of the Chinese factories are now moving to Vietnam, because they're going to the lower cost labor.
Outsourcing to Asia was an easy decision for Blumpkin, and one that his boss, Warren Buffett, fully supports.
When you first started talking to him about how you were going to be doing sourcing in more places, how you'd be going to China more often, was it something that he got immediately, or did he gradually over the years kind of pick up with it?
He got it immediately. I mean, when we first said, you know, we have the opportunity to maybe do some business in China and lower our costs, give our customer better value, he understands that perfectly clear, and he's taught us so many things over the year, but the one thing that he understands is if you're a low-cost producer and if you give the customer a good value, things will take care of themselves.
Buffett does his part at the Mart as well. The store exclusively offers the Berkshire bedding line. The deluxe model, the Warren.
My ambition in life was to be a mattress tester. I thought that would be a great job, just to sit there and test mattresses all day. So I told that to the Blumpkins, and when they came up with a special bed, they said, well, come on out and test this one, and I pronounced it AAA.
Do you have one?
I think I've got one. I can't tell you for sure. I mean, I told him to, I told Astrid to get the mattress out there, and I'm sure she picked out the Warren, but I have never actually, I don't know whether there's a label on it that says that or not.
You got to look under the sheets and check it out.
Yeah, right.
That's what Irv said. He goes, I bet Warren would know.
That's exactly right. I can't tell you what color the carpet is in my bedroom. Or the walls. I mean, I just...
Really?
No.
Why?
I just don't see things like that.
Because you're too busy thinking about other things.
I don't know about that, but whatever it is, I'm just not good at noticing things.
Do you know if how much of your furniture comes from Nebraska Furniture Mart?
Oh, it all comes from
there. It does. Okay.
It all comes from there. There's no question about that.
But furniture and metalworking aren't the only Berkshire operations in China. Buffett has high hopes for all of his businesses to eventually grab a piece of the Far East. In fact, someday, he'd like to see the Geico Gecko and the caveman right along the Great Wall.
What about just in terms of Berkshire's operations? How big of a market is China for stuff that you're selling into?
Well, it isn't that big yet, but it will get bigger by the year.
Do you sell insurance there?
We don't sell insurance there. You can only own 24.9% of an insurance company in China. We're looking into selling insurance there, though. It depends on whether they open up ownership further as we go along. But it's a source of real interest. I've looked into it.
In terms of having a Chinese partner
we probably have a Chinese partner.
But it would depend on if they would open those rules and you could own more than 24.9%?
Yeah, I think it's likely to happen, but I don't know whether it's a year away or 10 years away. It would be auto insurance with us.
It would be Geico?
Yeah, we could save them money. Yeah. Hey, they should be having petitions to let us in.
Still ahead, lessons of a lifetime, why they teach Warren Buffett in business school, and what you can learn by watching. Also, why Buffett is an MVP to one of baseball's biggest stars.
I've been waiting a while. Here come Omaha, hot now. I got hot head, hot eyes.
He may live a simple life in Omaha, but when Warren Buffett hits the road, life gets a little more complex. Crowds follow the Oracle everywhere he goes, from Washington, D.C. to Tefan, Israel. And from the time he steps off the plane in Dalian, China, to the time he boards in Daegu, South Korea, the cameras are rolling. Reporters from across Asia recording his every move on the ground. And everywhere, everyone wants to hear what Warren Buffett has to say, especially when it comes to the markets.
Markets tend to overshoot in both directions, and initially people get excited in markets, and they advance because things are getting better and earnings are developing. My reaction is always to get more cautious because it's easy to get carried away in the stock market when things have been going very well. So you should buy stocks because you think that they
The businesses are worth more than you're paying. I don't try to predict stock markets. I try to find securities, stocks that are selling for less than I feel that they're worth and buy them.
As usual, just about every word he says in the interviews seems to hit the wires.
Buffett says he's still negative on prospects for the U.S. dollar.
And as always, Buffett doles out plenty of his characteristic advice on value investing.
I am always looking for things I can understand. And if you understand the businesses and you buy at attractive prices, there really isn't much risk.
Advice sought not only by Wall Street, Main Street, and investors around the world, but also by some high-flying superstars you might not expect.
Well, I've always looked up to Warren. He's just a fascinating personality. In my mind, the smartest man in the world. And, you know, in the baseball world, he's like the Babe Ruth of baseball. And he's just done it all. And to me, what's been most impressive about Warren is how humble and how he's been able to just keep his, you know, his Omaha way about him.
Yankee third baseman Alex Rodriguez. His interest in business and investing led him to seek out the Oracle's advice 3 years ago.
I've read a lot of his books, and I just said, well, it would be just fun to call him up and, you know, see if he'll have a meeting with us. And I went up to Omaha and had a great, you know, 3 or 4 hour meeting, and then we had a nice dinner in Omaha. And, you know, ever since we've been friends, we keep in touch, and I follow everything he does, and it seems like he does the same with me.
He has your jersey up on his wall. That's one of the frame posters on his wall. What does that mean to you?
It's not very often where you look up to someone like Warren, and then you can actually become friends with him, and in some cases has been an advisor to my life and some of the business that I do off the field. And it's just, you know, it's really like a dream come true, because what comes out of, for me, out of Warren Buffett is not only is he a role model, but his humility is the #1 thing that I've enjoyed and try to do a little copycat and what he's been able to do.
Rodriguez takes Buffett's advice to heart, not only on the field, but also in his other ventures, including a housing development company that he operates from Miami.
We both have tremendous passion for what we do. I mean, I skip to the ballpark every day, and I've heard him say he skips to work every day. And we both love baseball, that's for sure, and we both love business. And he's much better at business than I'm at business, and I'm much better at baseball than he's at baseball. So there's some differences, too.
And he isn't the only athlete who's turned to Buffett. The Oracle is also friends with basketball star LeBron James, another hot name in sports, making $28 million a year. James sought out Buffett for investment advice that Rodriguez says is twofold.
#1, he always likes these business and baseball analogies. He loved Ted Williams as a hitter. And he said one of the things that Ted did best was be a very patient hitter. And he says it's the same thing you have to do in business. Be very patient, don't swing at a lot of pitches, but when you get your pitch, try to smack it out of the park. And that's kind of his philosophy in business. And for me, the best thing he told me was, don't forget about what you do best, and that's play baseball. Go out and try to be the best and greatest baseball player you can be for the longest time. And that's the best thing you can do for your business, for your family, and for your legacy. And I thought that was great.
But you don't have to be a sports hero to gain access to Buffett's ear in his hometown. You just have to own a share or two of Berkshire stock. Of course, that'll run you over $100,000. Loyal Buffett followers descend on Omaha every year.
If you knew Warren like I know Warren, oh, 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 what a guy.
Dubbed Woodstock for capitalists, Buffett's annual meeting is part carnival.
There's something symbolic about me being out of bulb.
Part concert.
Testing 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. Yeah, right, okay.
And all education.
I think I learned more here than I do in school for a whole semester, maybe a whole year.
The advice that I picked up is go out and read as many books on investing as you can.
Did someone say books? Take your pick. No fewer than 40 have been written about Buffett and his investing style. A number of the best are used in a one-of-a-kind course devoted to investing the Buffett way at the University of Missouri-Columbia's Trulaske Business School.
In this class, we've talked about how much cash Buffett currently has on Berkshire Hathaway's balance sheet.
Harvey Eisen, chairman of Bedford Oak Partners, is a Berkshire shareholder and a Mizzou alum. He brought the idea to the university's dean, Bruce Walker.
Harvey Eisen said, so given how successful Mr. Buffett is, why don't you teach your students more about what he does? We had discussions. I brought it up with the faculty. Mr. Eisen agreed to underwrite the course, and it's been very successful ever since we first offered it.
So successful that the course, now in its 9th year, is filled to capacity every semester and currently has a waiting list. Andy Kern was a student in the course and now teaches it.
This is an alternative perspective on business. It's that appreciation for all things that make up a company, not just the financials. Warren Buffett has been the best at allowing you to understand everything that makes up a good business.
While the principles in the course remain the same year after year,
he looks for a company that is undervalued, has a competitive advantage for the future, and has management that is going to make rational decisions and do what's best for the company.
the content changes as students grasp the global nature of Buffett's latest moves.
Right now, there are still big fish in other countries that I think he's starting to discover.
To achieve those desired returns, he has to go outside the U.S. Borders to find some of those undervalued companies.
Eisen, who checked with Buffett before pitching the course, still fully funds it out of his own pocket. Each year, he accompanies about 40 students to Omaha, where they get to spend time with the man himself.
They can't wait. Kids have told me it is the highlight of their lives. Forget college careers. They are so turned on. They are so excited just to be able to do that.
The Mizzou program is just one of many student groups that travel to Omaha each year for a tour of Berkshire operations and a no-holds-barred question-and-answer session with the Oracle.
We usually start out going to Nebraska Furniture Mart, and then we go from there to his office. He answers questions for about an hour and a half. And we go to Garatz, we sit down, and we all have open-faced roast beef sandwiches and mashed potatoes, cherry Coke.
A menu selected and approved by Buffett himself. When we come back, the ultimate in business class. You think flying commercial is tough? Even Warren Buffett has to deal with the frustrations of getting from here to there. We'll give you an unprecedented and surprising look at what it takes to get the world's 3rd richest man halfway around the world and back. Plus, wait till you see what's in his wallet. Warren Buffett, the billionaire investor, enjoys a quiet moment on his private jet as he heads towards Asia. He's savoring it, and he'd better, because it's the last quiet moment he'll have over the next 30 hours or so. The type of greeting your average business traveler might expect when arriving in Asia. But then again, Buffett's not your average business traveler. In China, local dignitaries, military escorts, and media outlets are all waiting on the tarmac. You'd think a reception like that would be hard to top. That is, until you arrive in Daegu, South Korea, where the mayor personally escorts him through customs, and a marching band does its best to try and make Buffett feel at home. All of this while throngs of reporters do their best to make him feel wanted.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
He's lucky to escape in one piece. While he doesn't speak Chinese or Korean, Buffett is more than able to get by. Translators help, but so does Buffett's ease with people and a heavy dose of horsing around.
When I arrived at the airport, your wonderful mayor started showing me the city, and he told me that it was known as the city of beautiful women, and I must say, he's a very good reporter.
On a trip like this, Buffett lets his guard down. Maybe it's the casual wardrobe, maybe it's the lack of sleep. He doesn't get any for the first 28 hours or so. But if you ever wondered what the billionaire next door keeps in his wallet, well, now's the time to ask.
I won't show you everything. I guess I've got about maybe $600 in here. Here's a $50 bill from a bank we owned in Rockford, Illinois, and if you look at it, down at the bottom, it's signed by the fellow who ran the bank for me. They issued their own currency, so I carry that around for good luck. And here we have my McDonald's card, which lets me eat free at any McDonald's in Omaha for the rest of my life. So that's why the Buffett family has Christmas dinner at McDonald's. That explains a lot of things.
Does anybody else have one of those cards?
There's just a few of them. Bill Gates has one.
his is good throughout the world, I guess. Mine is only good in Omaha, but I never leave Omaha, so mine's just as good as his is.
Who doesn't have one?
Pardon me?
Who doesn't have one?
Well, I think President Clinton wanted one very badly, but I don't think he has one. I think he has to go to McDonald's with me. Here's one from Johnny Rockets, which is a place I like very much. I like the milkshakes there, and I like the music there. And this lets me take 3 guests with me, actually. So play up to me, and maybe someday you'll get to go to Johnny Rockets with me. And let's see what else we have. Got a few credit cards. There. Got pictures of my grandchildren when they're young, and they're my children when they were young, and I keep those with me. And really, there's not a whole lot more here. There's a driver's license, and as you can see, the billfold is about 30 years old. It's only been out a few times during that period. Often moths come out when I pull out my billfold.
Eitan Wertheimer, the head of the Israeli metalworking company that Buffett bought in 2006, planned this trip.
He's calling me my travel agent, international travel agent.
Wertheimer's packed the itinerary to give Buffett a taste of the local culture every step of the way. Sometimes it's a tad more of a taste than Buffett would like. Take the 12-course meals of the local cuisine. It's a little rich for a man who's used to eating a very limited diet, mostly cherry Cokes, burgers, and French fries.
77 years old and I haven't ordered this yet.
6 courses into lunch with the mayor of Dalian, Buffett finally gets the meal he's been waiting for. Of course, back on the plane, it's a different story. Here, he can do things his way from the get-go.
We've got a lot of candy. They treat me like any other 5-year-old on this trip, yeah.
5-year-old, meaning you get any kind of food you want?
Pretty much, yeah.
Is there Dairy Queen in the back?
Well, sometimes there are but deli bars or something. They probably didn't get them this morning.
And it's not just dilly bars. The one constant on this trip, cans of cherry Coca-Cola. Buffett calls it his health food.
I manage my health. I drink lots of Coca-Cola. We own about 8% of Coca-Cola, so we get the profit on 1 out of every 12. So I recommend that all of you drink Coca-Cola, and you too will live to be 77.
And when he says lots, he means it.
I drank 5 12-ounce cans a day before we bought the stock, and I drink 5 12-ounce cans a day after we bought the stock. So I like the product, and no matter how much I like the product, I would not have bought the stock unless I thought it was very attractive for its long-term prospects.
Traveling around Asia certainly is easier when you go with a billionaire. But even being Warren Buffett isn't enough to cut through every bit of red tape. Yeah, that's just moments before we realized Buffett's luggage was missing. Buffett is ever the gentleman, and he didn't stress over this issue. And that bag, just in case you were wondering, yes, it was recovered. Warren Buffett, the billionaire next door going global. For all of us at CNBC, thanks for watching.
I would say goodbye in Chinese, but I don't like to show off.
These are applications from the serious candidates for the new CIO of Berkshire Hathaway. There are already 4 potential candidates. He just brought a little light reading for the plane.
Yeah, right, a little light reading.
A little light reading.
It's just like Superman going into a phone booth, right? I learn a lot by reading, and I learn a lot by talking to smart people, and I listen to what they say, and it's not very complicated. You should finish the day a little smarter than you started the day. If you don't, you're making a mistake. I should mention I also listen to CNBC.
还有就是我每天都看这个 CNBC 最知名的这个广播电台的节目。